DeVore. Welcome to the channel. It's been a while, a couple of weeks at least. I think I said that at the beginning of the last video as well. Roxy says hi as well. I apologize for there being too long a gap between videos this past month. A lot's been going on, so I have not been able to make a video in a while. So, here we are. First, it's a record review. The record I want to review is, this is the record. Theo Parrish, American Intelligence. Theo Parrish is, this would be considered deep house. Deep house. All of the little subgenres can be difficult to kind of track, and I don't blame anyone for not knowing what the hell I mean by deep house. But look at this. This big, epic, triple gatefold, triple vinyl. Come on. It's delicious. I love it. Vinyl. May vinyl never go away. It has so far remained the most archival music format. I think that's a fair thing to say. It's certainly up there. They don't degrade by sitting on a shelf. They are, if anything, more playable now than they were when they came out decades and decades and decades ago. I don't know. Seems like a good argument for vinyl right there. Anyway, I digress. Deep house. House music, which probably most of you know, is dance music from Chicago scene, and I guess towards the end of the 70s, definitely through in the 80s, it kind of came up. And it's that four on the floor dance music. Just very rhythmic, monotonous in that way that is best for just dancing with the band and for nights at a time. Deep house is related to house music, but it tends to be a slower tempo. It's not really optimized for dancing with abandon. And there is a very big sort of healthy dose of funk element infused into it. So they tend to have, it tends to be sort of funky bass line driven. Deep house doesn't always have to have that four on the floor, 4-beat, relentless rhythm. Other things that it shares with house music, it is still somewhat monotonous. It doesn't change. You're not going to hear verses and choruses and bridges or solos in anything from house or deep house music. If you're looking for a song to sort of go somewhere and you're not willing to give it more than a couple of minutes, you're going to be disappointed. Theo Parrish's songs, some of them really don't go anywhere. Some of them really do just find a very solid groove, and they sit tight in that groove. And sometimes I almost get the feeling that if anything does change throughout the progress of the song, it's almost as though my mind is imposing change on it, and it's actually not changing. You know, sometimes some optical illusions look like they're moving even though they're not. And then some of his songs do very slowly add or subtract elements as the song goes through. All the songs are relatively long. Some of these sides are 1-track sides, and the rest of them are 2-track sides. It's really good stuff. If you don't know deep house, this is a good and sort of an interesting. This guy's great, very well known in the Detroit scene, and maybe a good way to get into it. Deep house is something that I've liked for a really long time. For me, I kind of eased into deep house via acid jazz towards the end of the 80s, early 90s. And it really it pulled me in, and there's a lot of great stuff in that genre. Theo Parrish has a bunch of albums out, and they're all very consistently excellent, good stuff. This particular record also has just some really nice deep bass on some of these cuts. So if you're a bass head and you really want to get some room pressurizing music, there's a couple of really great tracks on this album. And there's another thing on my mind, and it's one of the things about not making a video for a couple of weeks, is that many times topics for videos kind of pop into my head, and I play with them for a little while, and they evaporate again, and then something else might pop into my head. And a topic that popped into my head a few days ago is the word woke. And I don't mean the word woke in the political sense that it is used today, because I think the way that woke is used today is totally bogus. It's a red herring, dog whistle, whatever you want to call it. It's a malevolent appropriation of a term that has existed for really a very long time, 100 years or so. I first heard the term in the context actually used about me by someone, and that was more than 20 years ago. So the word has been around for a very long time. The earliest recorded use that I know of the word woke in its real meaning, the legendary blues musician Leadbelly, he talks about it in a recording from 1939 where he's describing the motivation behind his song Scottsboro Boys, which is an incredible blues song about I think 10 or 9 black men who were tried and executed in Scottsboro, Alabama, several years before the song was written, but I think also in the 30s, maybe 31, 32, something like that. And Leadbelly, basically talking about what the song was about, he essentially just said it was a warning, and that if any of his friends, meaning black people, African American people, were thinking about going down to Alabama, they should remain woke. They should be woke, meaning aware of the state of affairs down in the Jim Crow South and how dangerous it can be, and to stay vigilant and to protect yourself with knowledge and awareness. And that seems like it's remained the definition of woke until just this last few years. I was proud to be called woke back when I first was. I feel like I was somewhat woke at that point, and I feel like I have done my best to continue to wake. Is that the present tense of wokefulness? And it's really discouraging the way words get taken away and essentially tried to rob of meaning, or even worse, corrupted and toxified in this way that changes their meaning fundamentally in order to make the words themselves become dangerous and politically charged and polarizing, which is absurd. There's no reason this word should be polarizing. And thinking about this a little bit made me think a little bit about my journey towards where I am now, and how I think about things, and how I think about people, and how I think about fairness, privilege, things like that. And I've said this before, here I am at the pinnacle of privilege as a middle-aged white man in the U.S. The irony of a white middle-aged man mansplaining wokeism is not lost on me. So rather than try to mansplain any further my opinion of what woke is, which is absurd on its face, I thought I would talk about my evolution, my awakening. I was raised by a single mom in Massachusetts. I have a younger sibling. I have a younger sister. And we were raised, my mom is a feminist, for sure. I guess you would call her second wave feminist. She subscribed to Ms. Magazine. She had one of the very early Xeroxed and staple-bound copies of Our Bodies, Ourselves. And she really tried to instill those values in her kids, my sister and I. And I think she did a great job. She explained what the feminist struggle had been, including the battle for suffrage, which I guess would be called the first wave of feminism. Women couldn't vote in the U.S. in the 20th century. Women only earned the right to fucking vote in the U.S. in the 20th century. Think about that, right? She talked about that. She talked about wage equality. She talked about rampant abuse, and in more general terms, the sort of the power structure of a lot of parts of society, and instilled that in me. And so I think from very early on, I had a sensitivity towards misogynism and misogynistic jokes. I didn't find them funny. I was aware of the hurt that can kind of come from that kind of language and those kinds of attitudes, and so there was an awareness, and so that was like a first step in my wokefulness, I believe. I think the awakening. I think this idea of becoming woke is legitimate, because I think there's this sort of idea that an infant, you're not born racist, you're not born misogynist, you're not born bigoted. But I don't know that that's necessarily true. There are evolutionary pressures that would predispose one to be suspicious of or even fear otherness, something different from your own, as a matter of self-preservation for our ancestors, to be afraid of something that's different, that's unknown. Likewise, there's evolutionary pressure to feel a certain way about members of one's species with whom we can have offspring, with whom we can prolong ourselves and our legacy. There's a very strong evolutionary pressure to do that. So this idea that all little babies are born this blank slate, I don't necessarily buy into that. I think that there are arguments to be made that babies can also be born racist, misogynistic pigs, and that they need to be taught otherwise. They need to be shown that these predispositions are, while they may be real feelings, they may be real predispositions, they are not based on any reality of today. And so this idea to add wokefulness to oneself as one gains experiences really is actually meaningful to me. And so I credit my wonderful mother for woking me to misogynism and sexism. And when I went to college, so I went to college at RISD, an art school in Providence, Rhode Island, and all freshmen at RISD stay in dorms, and then throughout that year you're supposed to mingle and get to know people and build great friendships, and I absolutely did that, and I built a great friendship, one of my very deepest and most meaningful friendships that exist still today was made that freshman year, and then I subsequently became that guy's roommate for the next 3 years of college, and that guy's name is Charles, and Charles is a black man. And I credit Charles with woking me to racism. And that's not to say that I was racist in any way. I mean, I absolutely never thought of myself as racist as a kid or growing up or in high school. I never thought of myself as being superior to other races in any way as a child. But that is different from being aware of racism in all of its myriad ways. Tiny little capillaries of racism and big throbbing arteries of racism that all exist all around us all the time. And I was absolutely not aware of them. And all credit goes to Charles for showing me the light. And I really think that most white people in the U.S. are in the boat that I was in before college. And that's this boat of, I'm not racist, I don't see racism around me, therefore it's not really a problem. And that itself can be a problem. Some of the examples that was pointed out to me, I mean, aside from pointing out language and opening my eyes to black artists and stuff like that I just had never had exposure to growing up. Charles also, we both lived in New York for a time after graduating from college. And after a night of hanging out, dinner, and maybe a couple of drinks, Charles would want to get a cab. And he would often ask me to hang out with him while he got his cab. And I realized that this was because cabs don't stop for black people. They will stop for a white guy. They will stop for a couple of people if one of them is white. But they won't stop for a black man, or they won't stop as often. Many times a cab with its vacant light will come up, see somebody flagging them down. As soon as they register that it's a black man, the vacancy light turns off, cab speeds away. And I saw it happen. That's just one sort of easily described incidents where I saw it firsthand. I would also credit later on, I would also credit my good friend Gregory for sort of continuing that woke journey with regards to racism. After about a year of living in New York, I moved for a short time to Los Angeles. I lived in Los Angeles for a little over 2 years. About 2.5 years. And it's there that I will give credit to Robert, Anton, and Laron for showing me what homophobia looks like, and for really making me aware of some of my homophobia and some of my callousness with regards to the struggle of the queer culture. And I credit those guys while I lived in LA for being my friend, being patient with me, pointing out language that I was using, and making me aware of that struggle that they face every day of their lives. And then lastly, I would like to credit my wife, who was always right and never wrong, and who is also an Asian American, raised in Oakland, California. She is absolutely an Oaktown native, hardcore. And I would say, of all of the things that she considers herself, I would say that white is not even on that list. And I credit her for opening my eyes to anti-Asian racism. Her and also our child, who is also Asian. Half Asian, half white, but in the eyes of the world and of America, they are other. They are seen as Asian. And I've heard firsthand accounts from both of them of anti-Asian hate speech directed at them. I have, and I've just been made aware of my own preconceptions of Asians as the good minority, as assimilating, as of striving in society, and being used against other minorities to denigrate other minorities, but also having backlash against them. And then more recently about real violence against Asians, directed towards Asians. And it's eye-opening, directed towards my family, my nuclear family. It really is eye-opening. And so that has made me more woke. And I would never, ever claim to be fully woke. I am continuing my journey of wokefulness. I hope that maybe someday I might be fully woken. I continue to drink my coffee, and I strive to be fully woke. And I hope that this, I don't know. I don't know what I'm expecting of this video. It's a big ramble, and I know I'm going to be cutting it down quite a bit to fit into a YouTube chunk of nuggets. But I don't know. I hope it explains woke to people who are only hearing this term more recently and are confused by it, or maybe are being influenced by this highly politicized, weaponized use of it. I really think that use of it should be ignored. It should even be pushed back against. And I think people should be more made aware of the real definition and the real use of it over 100 years at least at this point in America. It is an American term. It is part of our history, and it is something that not only should we strive for, but if you're not going to go that far, you should at least fucking learn about it. You should be educated. You should know what you're talking about. So look it up, read about it, listen on YouTube. Find that clip of Leadbelly talking about, if any of my brothers are going down to Alabama, stay woke. Because what he's talking about is not what the current politicians are talking about. I guarantee you that. And you should know about it. And it's an important distinction. Well, that was the soapbox. Thank you so much if you made it to the end of this video. Thank you for watching. And I'll see you at the next video. And I promise it won't take so long to put it up. Bye.
Drive. Where's your drive? Where's your drive?